So we're announcing a package of reforms today that will take £50 billion out of the welfare budget that we can then spend on defence, on tax cuts, on other priorities. In terms of the foreign nationals, we have a situation at the moment where 1 million non-British nationals are claiming universal credit. 250,000 foreigners are claiming PIP. We've spent £55 billion in the last 4 years on foreign national welfare benefits. So this is part of the problem, and we are determined to correct it. We think that there's £21 billion of savings to be found by withdrawing the right of foreign nationals to claim welfare. The welfare system was created for British people. And if you're here in this country, you should be making a contribution.
It's past 8. Reform UK has a new plan. It wants to stop thousands of foreign nationals, including those with permission to live here, from claiming almost all benefits. The party had already said it would withdraw universal credit from thousands of people born abroad, but this goes further. Under the proposals, even EU nationals with settled status would be prevented from claiming almost all welfare payments, including housing, free childcare and disability benefits. Joining us now is Reform's Head of Department for Preparing for Government, Danny Kruger. Danny, morning to you.
Good morning.
How is this going to work? Give us the structure of this.
Well, this is in the context of a totally unsustainable welfare bill, hundreds of billions of pounds a year going on welfare, including £100 billion just on health and disability benefits. So we're announcing a package of reforms today that will take £50 billion out of the welfare budget that we can then spend on defence, on tax cuts, on other priorities. In terms of the foreign nationals, we have a situation at the moment where 1 million non-British nationals are claiming universal credit. 250,000 foreigners are claiming PIP. We've spent £55 billion in the last 4 years on foreign national welfare benefits. So this is part of the problem, and we are determined to correct it. We think that there's £21 billion of savings to be found by withdrawing the right of foreign nationals to claim welfare. The welfare system was created for British people. And if you're here in this country, you should be making a contribution. You shouldn't be relying on the taxpayer. If you want the entitlements of welfare support, and I understand why you would, then you should join this country properly. You should get a passport, become a citizen, and then you have all the benefits and entitlements of everybody else here in this country.
Are there some examples that could give concern, though, even within that framework? Think of children of foreign parents in this country, EU nationals with settled status, who may fall on hard times. Those children would be hitherto helped by benefits, and there's a moral case for looking after children, whatever the faults of their parents. Are you worried that they would fall through the gaps here?
Well, listen, the important thing is that the parents should take responsibility. Obviously, no child will be left destitute. But if
how would that work? How would that work though? If child benefit is being cancelled if you have foreign parents, how would it work for children with foreign parents?
Well, those families should not be receiving benefits, and they will still be entitled to hardship relief if they needed that, but they shouldn't be here in this country if they're not able to support themselves and their families. That's a basic principle of fairness. If people are
so they would get benefits then?
And not national. Well, no, if they are coming to this country, they should be contributing to the exchequer. They should be making a positive contribution, working and paying taxes. They shouldn't be living on benefits.
I guess the case study I'm giving you as a possibility is you have two parents from an EU country, for example, foreigners. They fall on hard times. Their children are potentially going to suffer. The current benefit system would kick in now and help those children. What would happen to those children in your system?
Well, children are dependent on their parents. We ascribe benefits to households, and families that are unable to support themselves should not be here. Obviously, there are hardship grants.
But if they are here, what happens to them?
They shouldn't be here.
But if they are here, what happens to them?
They will not be entitled to benefits, and they will have to go. Obviously, if they're listen, the extreme example you're giving, I think you're suggesting that children are destitute, their parents are not earning. Obviously, social services would step in and remove those children from their parents if they're not able to put food on the table. But the parents will no longer be entitled to benefits if they are not British nationals. And by the way, we encourage them to become so. There are many people who've lived and worked, made Britain their home over many decades. The EU deal was that they could remain here with so-called settled status, with all the entitlements of citizenship, but without making the actual formal commitment. We think that's wrong. If people want to make Britain their home, they should properly join us, and they'd be welcome.
One consequence of this, Danny, is you're going to have to renegotiate the Brexit deal, one of the great never-ending processes of British politics. That's is that just a tax you think is worth paying in order to get this change, that we would have to renegotiate that deal? British people who are expats in other countries would lose reciprocal benefits, and it will take a fuss and a hassle, and probably will get a worse deal as a result of that. Is that all worth paying for in order to get this central benefit, do you think?
We won't get a worse deal as a result. We'll get a better deal, and we do need to renegotiate the Brexit arrangement, which was negotiated in a crisis. I was around at the time. Remember it well. We all do. It's pretty traumatic. But in order to get a deal through Parliament, yes, we can get a better deal for Britain, absolutely. And remember, we have significant leverage over the EU. A new government coming in with a mandate, a commitment to do a range of things that I think the British people would regard as absolutely necessary in order to stop illegal migration, in order to crack down on this abuse of our benefit system, to improve our trade arrangements, to end the scandal of Northern Ireland remaining in the EU. There's a series of steps that will need to be made as part of a renegotiation with the EU, which, by the way, is a perfectly normal thing for an incoming government to do.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer promised to do it. No doubt Andy Burnham will continue. We will do the same, but we will do it in the interest of the British people and get a better deal.
Can I just say, as an outsider here, Danny, everyone in opposition can find billions to save in a welfare, and everyone in opposition can get a better deal with the EU. And then people in government never live up to that. That's just the reality of British politics. Why should anyone think that you'll be any different to that?
Listen, Stig, that is a fair challenge. I think that is why why the public is so exasperated with successive governments. And listen, reform is different. I think we have a totally different attitude, a different commitment that we are making. I don't think anybody thinks it's going to be business as usual with reform. If we come in, we will have a mandate, and we are going to be setting out in great clarity. And by the way, a proper 50-page, fully costed document is being published today setting out these welfare plans. If we win, we will have a plan ready. We will have a mandate for change. And I think in Nigel Farage, you have somebody, he is not an establishment figure. He is prepared to make a noise, to make the changes that are needed. And if that requires some fairly hardball negotiations with the EU, so be it. And if it requires some tough choices on welfare, so be it as well. We're setting out how we're going to do that. I think people can have genuine confidence that if Reform win, we are going to change things. That's why I've joined Reform. That's why Reform is doing so well in the polls, because it genuinely represents change. And you look at the old two mainstream parties, they don't have that commitment.
You mentioned Farage. The Clacton by-election farce is now over. Was it worth it, do you think?
Well, Stig, I don't think you should call a by-election a farce.
Why?
Nigel Farage, Nigel called
it
that.
It had farcical
Well, they had farcical elements because the other parties, I think fairly disgracefully, decided to let themselves be represented by a comedian, a man with a bin on his head. I think that was an insult to the voters of Clacton. They demonstrated that in the way they voted, and I was on the doorstep. They weren't amused by the ridiculous comedic antics of the other parties.
Well, 10,000 of them voted for him.
Well, yes, and that's a third, a small minority against the overall.
Well,
result.
I don't know.
And it was
Farage got 20,000. He got 10,000. It's not that small.
Well, that's a pretty significant difference, isn't it?
Know.
There was no. Listen, that was a resounding success for Nigel Farage, a recommitment by the people of Clacton for their local MP. They want change. The whole country wants change, and the other parties are doing their best to sideline, to mock, and indeed breaking the law in order to find sticks to beat Nigel with. There's a pretty outrageous campaign underway to stop us. In a sense, that's natural. We're winning. We're on course for victory. Things are going well.
And also, people would say, Daddy, you know this, that people say there's legitimate scrutiny
yes,
of Nigel Farage. He seems to be himself close to admitting he didn't get everything right when it came to that £5 million donation. He said, I think a couple of days ago, do you know if I made one sin if I haven't filled in a piece of paper? Maybe I haven't filled in a piece of paper. That seems to be recognising he probably did something wrong here. Now, whether it's a significant error is an interesting debate to have, but he seems to be getting close to saying he may have got something wrong.
Well, your first point is absolutely right. Scrutiny is important, and it's right that people are interested particularly in the relationship between money and politics. That's why we have rules about what you're supposed to declare and what you're not. And Nigel was advised that he did not need to declare that donation, which he received before he was a politician. But
it wasn't before he was a politician.
Before he was an elected politician, while he was out of politics. So. Wow. Actually, he felt, and I understand why, that he was not obliged to make that declaration. It may be that he should have done. Let's see what the standards.
Do you have faith in that system? Do you have faith in the parliamentary system?
Well, listen. I mean, it's a difficult one because ultimately Parliament is sovereign, and I think there is something a little problematic with MPs sitting in judgment on their peers because, frankly, as we've just seen, and the point of this by-election, We as MPs owe our seat in Parliament, the power that we hold, to our local voters. The idea that other MPs can throw you out over what is, fundamentally would be a technical breach of some rules, I think it is problematic. But listen, Parliament is sovereign; it can make its own rules.
So, do you have faith in
how
it,
it works?
Do you have faith?
Well, I don't have my. Listen, let's see what happens. I think what we've seen is, a pretty serious witch hunt, as I say, including the real likelihood of criminality on the part of state agencies working with the media and with opposition parties.
But it's not a witch. Here's what the phrase witch hunt gets used a lot in this country. Witches don't exist. It's not a witch hunt. He got 5 million quid from someone. There's clearly a question about whether the rules have been broken or not. That's not a witch hunt. That's a scrutiny to find out if it's true or not. And he, as you yourself concede, he may well have broken the rules in how he disclosed this stuff. That's not a witch hunt. That's scrutiny.
Well, innocent women existed, and they were accused of being witches and drowned. So, obviously they pick on somebody, and they might find, as I say, as you've pointed out, they might find some minor infraction in order to prosecute that person. But clearly, what's going on here is a political campaign to bring down the great challenger to the establishment parties. That is what is going on, and they might well have found an infraction of a recommendation, which is all it was, that people should declare these donations that they receive before they're elected. But really what's going on here is a campaign by the establishment parties to undermine and destroy the challenge to their long-term hegemony, their power in this country, which needs to end if we're to have the change that this country needs.
Danny, we appreciate the time to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
That's Danny Kruger, Reform's Head of Department for Preparing for Government.
On Clacton, we will hear